you were talking about shooting guns out of your pickup truck though, and that reminded me when I lived in Idaho, a guy I worked with was really, really into guns. And he was like, "Hey, dude, let's go out shooting sometime. I know this really awesome place." And like, he's from there. He knew every area. He's like, "It's really not that far, but it's secluded as shit, and it feels like you're in the middle of nowhere. Even when you hop back on the highway and you're at a Hardee's in 2 seconds." It's like, "Oh, cool, let's do that." And so he and I and a couple of his other friends I didn't know get in his truck one day after we get off work, and he supplied all his guns. He had a nice collection. There was he was like all doing that gun thing, which is very wholesome and nice. As we're driving, he's like, "And you're gonna love this one because XYZ, and I have this accessory on it, and this and that." And he's one of those just so excited to do it. And I was like, "Oh, this sounds awesome, dude." So we get out there, start loading everything up. He's explaining all the guns I'm not familiar with, and we start just popping these little targets, these little foam targets that we brought with us. And then we take a shotgun out, and we have like a self thrower. So I'm heaving up clays and shooting them, having fun. And then after maybe 30-35 minutes, this like little, those tracker cars, those like old Ford trackers. They're like short, like little crappy ones.
Geo,
but it was
Chevy maybe or something. Yeah,
it looked like a Geo tracker, but not quite that shitty. And it had like a little like light on top of it. And it was driving out there, and I was like, "What the hell is this?" And he kind of just sat there and watched us for a bit. And the guy was like, "It's no big deal. Like, I'm sure lots of people come out here to just shoot guns." And in my head, then I'm like, "We're the only people I've seen shooting." Matter of fact, I don't see anyone else out here. After a couple more minutes, the guy drives over and gets out. He's got like a security slash almost like army looking is what my first thing was. And I was like, "What the hell is this?" And he walks up and he addresses my friend who like does that, like, he's the guy who's brought us there. So he like goes to meet him out a few feet, and the guy's coming up, and the guy's like, "Hey, what are you doing?" He's like, we're shooting guns. And he goes, yeah. "You're doing it at an Air Force testing field. What are you doing here?" And I was like, "Oh no. Like, am I going to get in trouble for this? I thought we were going to a fun
this
little
is a minefield."
It's Air Force testing field, apparently, is what it was. And the guy was very cool. My friend who brought me there is like, "I'm so sorry, man. I've been out here like a dozen times before. I thought it was fine." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess a lot of people do. We don't see them that much. There's cans everywhere, but you got to get out of here. You can't be shooting guns on an Air Force base, basically. And even if it's in the middle of nowhere, because Air Force bases are apparently ginormous."
Huge.
And so, yeah, then we just hopped in and left. And I just felt lucky that we didn't get like a ticket or something or whatever it would be, because
out in New Mexico, that was something I discovered that I'd never seen in Georgia, because Georgia's rural for the most part, but it's not desolate.
It's all owned. Like, someone owns everything in the East Coast.
Yeah, and there's a Bureau of Land Management land out in the West. And I read something or watched a documentary once where they explained why that is, and I don't even remember anymore, but there are gigantic tracts of land out west that are just public lands.
Mm-hmm.
And I've filmed a lot of videos out there where we would just pull off of a regular road, like a 2-lane highway or whatever, onto a dirt road, and then we'd drive that dirt road out for 5-6 miles, and then we turn off of that onto what amounted to a path, not a dirt road anymore, and then we'd follow that for like 10 miles, just out into, like, it looked like something from a Clint Eastwood movie, just
more miles than you needed, Kyle.
We were going to shoot a minigun at a mountain, so seemed like we needed to get
one of a lot of miles. Okay,
we wanted as many miles as we could get. And it was blowing shit up and shooting a lot of big stuff. And there's nobody out there. There's the tagline for the movie Aliens was, or for Alien, is like, "No one can hear you scream in outer space." And it was like, no one can hear you fucking scream out here, dude. Like no one. There was no, like, I've been to places where you're like out in Texas at the Ox Ranch, like, you'll get up on a hill and you'll look and you're like, yeah. I think maybe that's a house way over there. Like,
mm-hmm.
I don't know how far you can see off the top of a really tall hill when it's flat land forever, but seemingly many miles. Yeah, way over there, that's a house, or that's a tower, like a radio tower. out in New Mexico, you'll be in places where it's like you'll get up on top of a really tall hill and spin around 360 degrees and be like, there's nothing. There's nothing. There's no trace of human life. There's nobody out here with us. It's crazy.
It's kind of cool. Like I definitely saw that in Idaho, and I would go shooting in areas that were legal, where it was like, oh my God, I could just build a cabin out here and no one would find me ever.
It stinks that North Carolina and the whole East Coast really doesn't have that. I don't know if Bureau of Land Management owns anything here. I feel like even the parks are easements onto people's properties and such. You know, North Carolina outside Raleigh has these nice like greenway trails where you can ride bikes and skate and whatever. People walk their dogs. It seems to be like somebody's land, or they just bought it and all they have is a little path, and it's people's yards. You can see them as you're like kind of walking past them, and nothing's unowned.
In Georgia, around Elberton, Georgia, which is the granite capital of the world, it's also where that monument was built by no one knows who, that tells you like how to rebuild society in like a dozen languages, and has a compass and a calendar built into it, the big big granite monument. But there was like public hunting land there, which I didn't usually go on to, but it was a huge tract of just public hunting land, really just a forest that anybody could go in and shoot deer out of. But it's nothing like what they've got out west. And with the shooting, they're super comfortable with guns in New Mexico. Like, you'd be driving down one of those desolate highways, and on the side of the road, there'd be a makeshift gun range. Just a little part where you could tell cars would pull off just off the road, like just right off on the shoulder. And then there'd be a bunch of pop-up targets and like beer bottles and bullet casings. Just crazy.